Welcome, this is Brandy with a BeeBitCrafty. Do you have abandoned craft projects just laying around and collecting dust? I definitely do. And this one even has a name, Bob. I found him while digging through my Halloween decorations. He's been sitting around taking up space for over 2 years, and I want to finish him and put him up with my other Halloween decorations. Abandoning Bob was a grave mistake. I'm going to show you the reason I abandoned him, and I will finally be finished with him. Either I will complete him or completely ruin him. There is no in between. So Bob isn't a character that I came up with or a name that I came up with. He's actually a character from the Dresden Files, a book series that I really love. And if I was going by the book description, all I'd need to do is put some lights in his head, and he'd be finished. But instead, I wanted to go with the more visually interesting Bob from the Dresden Files TV show. To make my Bob match the show Bob, I had to take and carve a whole bunch of runes. Honestly, this step is almost complete. All that is left is to take my Dremel and carve out the bottom jaw. I used a pencil to draw the markings as a guide, and I used one of my smallest and most pointed Dremel bits, and then I just went over my guidelines. It was difficult because the plastic feels thick, and I have no way of knowing how thick it really is because I don't want to punch a hole in it. It's just supposed to be a carving of runes, not a bunch of holes. It's a lot of work. It took a week or more to carve out each and every rune and marking, and after that, so much sanding that I don't show here. But the results are worth it, and it will make inking them in later much easier. Well, at least hopefully. Also, I want to add this skull isn't anything special. It came from, I think, like Walmart during Halloween. It's just made out of plastic. The only special part about it was I thought the size was about the size of a real human skull. So, once again, the skull's not anything special, but the paint job will hopefully make it look great. Guys, enjoy the new camera angle, because this is the only time I use it because I forget about it for the rest of the video. And I'm just going to go along Bob's jaw. That's the last part that actually needs dremeled, and just finish that up, and then finally I'll be done with all the Dremel and can move on to painting. So what is the Dresden Files that I keep going on about? Well, it's a 17 books and counting series by Jim Butcher. Harry Dresden, the main character of the story, is a professional wizard and private investigator. He even has a wanted ad in the paper and everything. This urban fantasy shows the hidden world of magic that contains vampires, the fae, and even fallen angels. Dresden, with his friend Murphy, have to fight these forces and protect the humans of Chicago. One of the problems that Dresden and all magic users face in this series is if you're a wizard, modern technology doesn't do well around you, really if it's invented after World War II. If Dresden, God forbid, was near your phone, he could break it in 30 seconds flat. So what is a guy to do for research when a computer would literally burst into flames if he walked by it? Well, that's where Bob comes in. He's basically Dresden's form of Google. Bob's role is to be an advisor for all things magic and paranormal, so he can help Dresden solve all of the paranormal crime in Chicago. Now it's time to come to the part that I'm most worried about, and that's doing the sepia wash in the runes. I'm not sure how clean the Dremel was, so I'm not sure if it'll be crisp like I want it to be. So the first thing I tried was dipping a paper towel in ink and rubbing the ink on as a wash. In theory, it should go down in the carvings I made, and then I can wipe away the extra from the rest of the skull, and then the runes will be completed. So I tried that, and that's not what happened. In fact, the ink went everywhere except inside the runes. I don't think it's the ink either. I'm using Liquitex acrylic ink, and acrylic sticks to everything, like the surface of Bob's skull that I had to wipe off and it wouldn't hardly come off, so I didn't think it was the ink. I worked on this for at least 2 weeks, if not more. I didn't want all that time wasted. And that, I think, was the #1 reason I couldn't finish this project. I was frozen in fear because of perfectionism. Perfectionism is different for everyone, but for me, it causes me to freeze. I am afraid of doing anything for fear of messing up. But nothing is perfect, and if I did nothing with Bob, I wouldn't learn anything or learn how to overcome it. Even mistakes are a learning experience. You can always work towards getting better, mistakes and all, but if you do nothing, you'll just stay where you're at in your art, as well as with everything else. And if all else failed, like I said, obtaining the skull was super easy. Actually, I think it came from Lowe's, but it was super easy to get, so I can always just buy another skull and start again. And with that, I decided to go with Plan B, the extremely time-consuming plan of taking a paintbrush and lining every single rune. Another strategy is when trying something new like lining these runes, which is super time-consuming, I don't want to give up on it too early because they felt like they were looking off in the beginning, but like Dory says, with the just keep swimming, I have to just keep going and trust the process. There was not enough paint on Bob to make an educated guess as to whether it looked good or not, so I just had to keep going. In the end, it wasn't quite as bad as I thought it would be. The grooves of the runes themselves helped keep the paintbrush on track. I still messed up in a couple of places, but I wiped those off. And with this next step, I actually put more brown on it because I think that the skull looks a little too clean. The lines aren't perfect with this, but Bob's supposed to be thousands of years old, so I'm going to pretend that, you know, he got dirty and the lines got messed up from how old he is. So here I'm going to use both the paintbrush and a sponge and take some of the brown ink that I used for the runes to just dirty Bob up a little bit. I'll go around the whole skull, just adding the ink where it feels correct, which is pretty much everywhere except the very top of his skull. Adding weathering adds interest to this piece, and I think it makes it look a lot better overall. Now it's time to start the process of adding Bob's glowing orange eyes. I recruited Josh to help me with this part. In the books, Bob is the orange glow. Since he's an intellect spirit, all he is an orange glow, technically, and the skull is really just his home that he lives in. So this part, to me, is really important to get right. And here you'll see Josh drilling the holes so that the light can shine through. The battery pack and the lights that he uses for Bob's eyes actually come in a soldering kit that he purchased. Here Josh is testing to make sure the LED light fits in the socket he created. We want them to fit snug so the LED will stay in place. So here you'll see that Josh is using a crochet hook to fish out the wires so that we can hook them up to the battery pack. He has to fish out the lines twice because Bob has two lights for two eyes that have to be connected to the battery pack. Now Josh is testing to make sure the LED light will actually light up. He doesn't want to go through all the trouble of soldering it to find out that the light doesn't even work. Here Josh is using a paintbrush to apply paste flux to the ends of the LEDs and the end of the wires to the battery pack. This will form a bead and allow him to solder the two wires together. Here he is forming the bead, and it was very tricky to get the bead to stay attached between the wires. He did this 3 or 4 times before getting it to stay. So funny story, while Josh once again fishes out the lines with the crochet needle, when I first did this, my idea was to take this powerful orange LED light and put it inside Bob's head and let the light shine through the eye holes. Do you know why this didn't work? Because that's how you make a lantern. The plastic was not opaque enough for this to work. I need to remember to film the bloopers as well as the progress for my stories from now on. But yeah, I made a lantern. And to further secure the connection point, Josh wraps the wires in electrical tape and goes over them with the solder iron. This Halloween month marks BeeBitCrafty's first full year. I'm so glad we get to celebrate by finally finishing Bob the Skull. Now, behold my final creation.